Moses coming back. I'm going to get this straight underway and hand it over to Jade, Mia, one of you. Jade.
Tēnā rā tātou katoa, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou I te ata nei. To be back. I would just, my things all in line. So the main goal of today's session is to do a little bit of scene setting, demonstrating what alcohol harm looks like within the Porirua context. And then I hope we can get your feedback on the potential policy options that are available to us. Before I get into the detail, I just firstly want to start by acknowledging there's a lot of information to cover today. And you've had a lot of information provided to you in the background context. There's a few documents sent through to you, and there is a lot of slides to get through. So I just wanted to check your preferences for today's sessions. Would you prefer I get straight into the key aspects of the presentation, or would you like me to go through?
So can you take it as read? They've all read the presentation.
Yep,
they've all had it.
Cool.
And I know we've got visitors waiting as well. So you can tell us whether you want questions going through or whether you want to do it at the end. Yep. And I'm sorry to be rude, but Wendy and I are leaving at 11:40 and Ross will take over if we're not finished.
Okay, no problem. So I'm happy to take questions throughout the presentation, and any areas that we do end up skipping in terms of the reading content you've provided, you've been provided, I can answer questions throughout the process. So basically, we're just going to give you, I'm going to go straight to the We'll get straight into our licensing. So currently we have 72 active licenses in Porirua. We've got 19 for clubs, which are your RSAs, your sports clubs, and your the marine club. We've got quite a few clubs. We've got 31 which are off licenses, so those are our bottle stores, our supermarkets, and then we have 22 licenses for our on licenses, so that's our restaurants, bars, cafes. We have 104 we have had 104 special licenses within the last year, and special licenses are our most common license application, and those are for one-off special events. I just wanted to highlight that the overall number of licenses that we have in Porirua has declined since 2019. We do have 47% of our current licenses within areas of high deprivation. So, get straight into the Porirua context of alcohol harm. So, alcohol harm is very much the most prominent purpose of the alcohol legislation and the regulation process and framework that we have. So we'll just explore what alcohol harm looks like within the Porirua context. So I just want to make a few comments on the evidence. So there is plenty of research available that outlines the harms caused by alcohol. The impacts from a health and societal perspective are significant, and we do know that. However, being able to identify harm that is specific to a local community is really difficult without significant resource. We have found it difficult to gather adequate evidence at a territorial authority level, specific to Porirua, that pinpoints whether harm is exclusively caused by alcohol, including specific drinking habits and purchasing habits. However, we can safely assume that the harms incurred from alcohol use that exist across New Zealand at a national level and other parts of the world also exist for our communities here in Porirua. In fact, our higher than average proportion of households living in high deprivation means that harms are probably underestimated in the data sometimes. And what is important to note is that the recent developments in new legislation and case law does provide councils some assurance that our LAPs can prioritise the perspectives of our communities and do not need to be evidence-based. We do not need definitive proof that an intervention will have the impact we think it may have, and councils can rely more on the voices and perspectives of our communities to direct the policy options. This was explored in more detail in the background content that you were provided. Are there any questions on that?
No.
Okay. So what does alcohol harm for Porirua? Well, in general, actually. Alcohol harm is an extensive societal issue. It is ingrained in many parts of our society. In the long term, harmful and hazardous levels of alcohol consumption can lead to significant social problems, including problems with employment, finances, relationships, and often lead to whānau and community-wide impacts. The health impacts are both short and long term, and alcohol is considered to be a catalyst in over 7 different types of cancer, as well as other long-term chronic illnesses. Yes.
Councillor Duncan, sorry.
No mention of road problems with traffic problems and things and drunk driving in there.
That's correct, and we do have data that will be provided in our overall evidence report, which is going to be included in our social impact assessment. So we do definitely have evidence on that as well. So this is very recent data that we've received this week. So this is a new slide that you wouldn't have seen in your pack. The alcohol-related hospitalisations data has been provided by the Medical Officer of Health, and the data shows quite concerning statistics for Porirua residents. We have 20%, the hospitalisation figures for chronic alcohol-related health conditions, alcohol intoxication, and alcohol-related injuries. We sit in the top 20% across the entire national averages. So we have particular suburbs that are more concerning than others. We have the most concerning statistics in the Titahi Bay South, Waitangiroa, Cannons Creek, and Takapuahia, Elston areas. And we are able to also break this down by particular groups within those areas as well.
Izzy has a question for you.
Sorry, Jade.
Yes.
The 20%, is that based on address? So if they were admitted into Wellington?
That's correct. So they're hospitalisations.
Okay,
so
cool.
yeah, basically.
And are these addresses where we have higher outlets of sellers?
We will get to that very soon. So I've got a really awesome map that I'm very excited
Mike?
to take you.
And you termed Titahi Bay South. What part of it?
I'll show you on the map, but
They're very impatient, sorry.
the easy answer is basically each data set has different location zones that they've used for those. So it's a lot, but we'll get to there. Sorry.
This is live.
Okay. So, who is impacted by alcohol harm? So, firstly, we know most people who do drink do not drink in harmful ways. However, alcohol harm is far-reaching and has impacts at a population level. If we just look at the overall costs to government and taxpayers, alcohol harm costs our health system roughly $9.1 billion a year, and we have provided a figure up there of the proportion of what that would look like for Porirua. So that would be around $108 million. Most people at some point are impacted by alcohol harm in some form. It has direct and indirect impacts for all parts of our society. You are more likely to be harmed by the drinking of somebody else than you are from your own drinking. So the indirect and direct impacts, indirect are more like your DUI accidents, car accidents, things like that, seeing certain fights or things like that in CBD centres. There's lots of different examples.
Okay, Kylie's got a question in there.
Yes.
Sorry, animal abuse and violence, where does that come in there? Is it family violence or all violence? Because that's a big, huge
Which
thing
one are
in
we
New
looking
Zealand.
at? The 1 out of 3 of
The
all?
harms, so 1 out of 3 down here.
I think that's of all family violence is alcohol related. 1.3%. Oh, sorry, 1 out of 3. Yeah. Okay, good to know. We can have a look at that as well. So no one is immune to the impacts of alcohol harm in the many forms. And we all have our own personal experiences with what alcohol harm can look like. However, there are pockets of inequity seen in the impacts of alcohol harm, which we will explore within the Porirua context. So this slide, you have received the same information, I just packaged it differently. So the key areas of concern for Porirua that have come out of our research and evidence so far are mainly there is disproportionate impacts in our city centre, So we've seen higher levels of crime, antisocial behaviour. We also have the highest density of alcohol licences in an area that is considered to be high deprivation. Our off licences do seem to be connected to greater adverse effects within our suburbs, and that's obviously due to people drinking at home and at parties, yes.
Mike?
So how do we define the city centre as a high deprivation area? How does that come about?
So we'll also get to that in the map, but it is a good question to ask because we have a very small population within the city centre. However, the population that do live there are considered to be living in high deprivation. So our third, in this, we also have inequity in the impact of alcohol harm within Porirua specifically. We have disproportionate impacts for our Māori Pacific communities, our young people and tangata whaikaha, and in general, many communities living in areas of high deprivation.
Jeff?
Thanks, Jade. My question is that, I guess it's a little bit similar to Mark's that may come up later on. But because of the relatively lower population within the city centre, and yet in terms of the number of venues and potentially volume of off-licence alcohol sales, is it possible that we're missing or drawing wrong conclusions around the role of the city centre in terms of the impact of off-licences?
That's an interesting question. So are you talking...
The presumption is that it may very well be easier to identify suburban issues with regards to off-licences because the number of locations where there are off-licences is relatively small and the population is relatively defined as opposed to a place like the city centre where there's a low population and yet a high volume. So I want to avoid the idea of survivorship and I don't want us to draw the wrong conclusion on that basis.
No, that's a really good point to make, and I think that is something we can consider when we get further into the policy options. But no, thank you, we can definitely consider that. And the map will definitely help, so we're able to do a bit of comparison. All right. All right, so we're going to get into this really cool map. So the map that we have available to you today is brand new. We're still working through some of the kinks, and we're hoping that the software allows us to do this in a really quick way. All right. So the main purpose of this map is... There we go. Okay. All right, so it is quite small, but we will zoom in. So, so this map will allow us to explore trends within the licences. We'll be able to look at some layers of high deprivation. We can attach layers of some of the hospitalisation data that we have. We also have been able to place sensitive site provisions within this map, and we're really good to go.
Can it go any bigger or not?
Yep. Let me see. All right. Okay, so... All right, so what we can see in front of us, each one of these colourful dots represents our current licences. So you can see the key on the right-hand side. We've got the green shows our club licences, so our sports clubs and RSAs. The red shows us our off licences, so our bottle stores, supermarkets. The blue blue colour dots show our on licences, so our restaurants, cafes and bars. So we'll take a quick look at our city centre, shall we? So the data included in this map is from our 2018 census. So acknowledge that it will be updated once we get the new data that it is not currently available. So here you can see our city centre, and there is quite a good mix of all three licence types, with our on licences being probably the most prominent. And we can overlay, so to answer your question in terms of the density, we'll have a quick look at that. So all of the legend on the blue, you can see here, I'll scroll down, represents the highest population of people that live in these particular areas. So you can see Cannons Creek has high density of our population. Parts of Elsdon over here, we have high density.
Whakapoa here as the city centre. Is that how
No,
you,
so the city centre is what we'd consider to be from Porirua Street. So
Okay.
for the purposes of this, I can show you the... So this is going to look really confusing because there's lots of consider from this area here. There's the district plan zone map, which does place the city centre as probably far exceeding, so it goes all the way up to Whitireia. But we're focusing mainly on this area here from around Semple Street down. But we do. Okay, so we'll have a quick look at the deprivation index. So we'll remove the density population. So the deprivation index shows where our highest levels of deprivation are. So Cannons Creek is a 10. We've got the scale down here. The orange colour is still considered to be an area of high deprivation, being a 9. And then all of the colours represent the scale. So we can see the city centre is considered to be an area of high deprivation.
Jeff?
Just so I'm clear here, you're using the Ministry of Health's deprivation index, and that's separate from the census data in 2018. When was the last time that was updated? Is that still in alignment with census collection?
I'm not sure on the health deprivation index. The deprivation index we've used here is the census deprivation index.
Okay, so they'll pull that from Ministry. Okay.
Yes. So we will overlay some of the health data in a second. So this kind of gives us an indication of what we're looking at within the density of our alcohol licences in the CBD. I'll just quickly remove the deprivation, and what I can show you which licences also have Class 4 gaming licences as well. So there's lots of really cool things in this map that we can do as well. But I might go through a bit of a case study looking specifically at Titahi Bay, just to give you an example of what we can do.
Can we actually get to this map ourselves?
Not as of yet, but
No,
you will
okay.
be able to if that's something we're able to look into, yes. It's also not publicly available yet, but we can look in that as well. So if we look at Titahi Bay, we'll just have a quick look. So we've got what we'd consider a high density of licences in this area. This is obviously that main shopping centre within Titahi Bay. If I put the deprivation index layer, we can see that although the city centre of Titahi Bay is not an area of high deprivation, the areas very close within 200 metres are considered to be areas of high deprivation.
Okay, Mike?
This is being live streamed, isn't it?
Yes, it is being live streamed. We're not talking businesses at the moment. We're just talking, and when we go to the police, that will be offline.
So these maps that you...
Yes, they can see them online.
Yeah, but it's all public information. So that's we're able to also layer on top of this. We can show you where our current sensitive site provisions are. So we've got New Zealand School Directory. So these are our local schools within the Titahi Bay area. We can also attach the health services, which we do not have any within the Titahi Bay area. So our current LAP includes 2 sensitive site provisions. So we have school facilities from age 5 and up. So primary, intermediate, high school. We also have registered health facilities that provide AOD treatment services. So those are currently in our policy, and the policy states that alcohol licences should not be located within 100 metres of a school or one of those medical facilities. So we can do a little bit of analysis and measurements on how close these are. Obviously within the Titahi Bay area, there is only a couple of schools. The concern really is where children are exposed to alcohol advertising, and obviously with the particular licences, they're likely to be exposed for example, from off licences with the advertising on the outside of their stores versus a restaurant or bar during the day may not be open. Well, some of them are. So it's the journey from school to home that they would be exposed. We can do a quick comparison. I'll just quickly show you through the health-related data at a high level for Titahi Bay. So I'll remove the deprivation index. So what we are seeing here, I'll just scroll out. So the hospital admissions for chronic conditions in Porirua you're looking at right now. So the dark red, we don't have any dark red in Porirua. We have like 80 to 90% up to the dark green. So what we're looking at here is, we'll show you all of Porirua so you can see it. The dark orange colours show that these populations sit in the 80 to 90% national figures for these conditions. So what we're looking at the moment is the hospital admissions for chronic conditions, alcohol-related conditions, and we can also look at the hospital admissions for intoxication. So we can see particular areas within Porirua that the residents there have higher statistics in the top national 80 to 90%. Are there any other questions on anything?
Jeff?
Just with regards to that final index, I'm assuming that that's population weighted as well, so as to not create the impression that just because there's a lot of people there doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lot of hospitalisations as well.
So I can't answer that for you right now, but I can find the answer for you.
Okay.
Izzy?
Just around that map that you had at Titahi Bay, the after, was it Bay school kids, after school care, is that, does that come into consideration when you're talking about?
Sensitive sites?
Yep.
If they're located at a school,
Okay.
then they would be, but
Cool.
no. Is there any other questions? The last thing that I will show you, I'll remove all of these, which will help us. So we can also overlay, what we've got is some data from police. It's static images of the crime levels. And so we'll show you Titahi Bay first. Okay, so I'll check. All right, so what you're looking at here on the left-hand side is we've got two sets of data provided by the police. So we've got the NIA alcohol harm data on the top graph there, and then on the bottom graph we've got the police card data. So these are all alcohol-related incidences that have been recorded by the police. The top set is recorded by police officers themselves in the NIA system, and the card data is recorded by their communications systems team.
Over how long?
So this period is between, I believe, 2019 to 2023. So we can see areas of significant concern in terms of our crime levels for, well, I'll zoom out so you can see Titahi Bay in comparison to, move this out of the way. So we can look at the same for Whitby, we can look at the same for Cannons Creek, and this is where we're able to do a bit of that analysis on the correlation to some of our licences. So we can see where the high density of some licences are in relation to areas of high crime, and I'm also able to, we've got a lot more pure data that we can also, these are static maps that we cannot manipulate as well from the police. So we'll have a quick look at the CBD. So this is the CBD map that police have provided us, and the way this circle works is it's a 2.5 kilometre radius around a central point that we have selected within the CBD. So it will be probably one of our licences that we've selected to have a look at. So you can see some correlations between the high density of crime and some of our alcohol licences being in the CBD as well. Are there any other questions on this? I think
No.
no? Okay. Well, I will now, I'm going to stop sharing. Wait for our PowerPoint to come back up, and then I will hand over to our guests to my right.
Are we? When? Now? We're going offline now. Okay.
Going off.